Hello everyone. Welcome to the 176th episode of Trends Literature series, where we explore powerful stories and voices of courage from history, literature, sports, and so on and so forth. But today we are especially honored to have with us Jyotsna Mohan. She's the co-author of the book that we are going to discuss today. Pratap, a Defiant newspaper, which she's co-authored with her father, very renowned journalist and editor, I must say, and we'll discover him during the course of our discussion. And she's also been the author of the best-selling book Stone, Shamed and Depressed, and that we have discussed a few years back, and it's been a bestseller till now. I think it's really been in news. So she's been a journalist, a columnist, ex-editor, and news anchor with NDTV. So proud moment for us to have her with us on our show. So what a pleasure to have
Thank
you with
you.
us.
Oh, such a kind introduction. Thank you so much, Neeta. Very generous. But I'm very excited to chat with you, and I'm always excited to chat about my books, and especially the new one.
As I must tell everyone that Pratap, a Defiant newspaper, the book launched nearly a year back, if I'm not wrong, with HarperCollins, authored by Jyotsna, as I said erstwhile.
But
Yeah,
this is blurring because my background is blurring. So, yeah.
yes, I have the book and I immensely loved it, I must tell everyone. And this is a story of a newspaper which was formed in 1919. So we are talking about a newspaper that shows courage over compliance under British Raj and freedom struggle, emergency, many defining moments in our history, especially also Punjab militancy. So Pratap was not only about news, it was standing tall when silence was safer. So to begin with, Jyotsna, you've co-authored this book with your father, Chandramohanji. So how has the role of Pratap newspaper shaped your career as a journalist, as a fearless journalist, I must say, and the person you are today? I've never known you not speak your mind. And so how has the writing of this book really
And then there are
changed you?
certain people, my mother doesn't want to hear that. My husband may not want to hear that.
Yes.
But I've always grown up with newspapers, right? I mean that was the one thing that was sacrosanct in my house. We always laugh about it that unless everybody has read all the newspapers, and by all I meant, when you grew up, वो ढेरी होती थी अखबारों की.
I'm sure.
There were like 10, 15 newspapers, and then weekly all the magazines. So if you've not read all the newspaper in the morning, then keep quiet and sit in the corner, because those who are reading will not speak to you till they have finished reading it all. So that was our family, that those were our mornings. And it's pretty sad that kind of culture is now going, that there's this joy in getting up in the morning and reading the newspaper. And up to in the morning, before you know everything, everybody knows everything, thanks to social media and everything that's digital. So yeah, that was my grandfather was a very fearless man, and that is his story as well, Pratap. So Pratap is actually, there are two stories within this story. One is, of course, about the newspaper that was my family's newspaper, and the second one is about my grandfather Virendra, who was very who was also defiant, who was very brave, and who fought for India's independence. And he was a colleague of a much younger colleague, though, of Bhagat Singh. And so, it's also his journey on the side that there's a man who comes from one of the most well respected, well known, most famous journalists. His father was the most well known newspaper editor in pre-independent India, in Punjab, in undivided Punjab, in Lahore. And here's his son, who was at the age of 16 or 17, decided to go into the freedom struggle and his struggles. What he discovered. He was a part of the revolutionary group. So that was his defiance again. He was part of Chandrasekhar Azad and Bhagat Singh's group. And, so the times that he found himself, I think 9 times in jail before he was 21. And it chronicles both the stories simultaneously. The newspaper that, that was our family's newspaper. That is the newspaper we grew up seeing all around. That is the newspaper whose editorials my father and my grandfather were always writing, and you had to be quiet when they were writing these editorials every single day. And that's the environment we grew up with, that, news is sacrosanct, but truth is even more important.
Absolutely right. And it's a great story about your grandfather, Virendra. I mean, going to the jail at the age of 16 and then doing that 9 times over and the kind of and he was there in the jail during Bhagat Singh's hanging, I think, and all that has been mentioned and much more in the book. So I feel that Pratap was definitely much more than a newspaper. Paper. It felt like a movement. So at what time do you think you realized that you were not only documenting just a book on the newspaper, but also a history which people needed to be told? And what was the time when you thought that yes, the story needs to be told. People need to know about it. People like
You
us,
know, I,
yeah.
no, sorry, continue.
No, everybody needs to know the story. I mean, I know about freedom struggle, but through this book, there's so many things I would say kind of behind the scenes that you've mentioned. And there's so many things that people need to know about this book. And they're reading what you've narrated so well and in such a lucid and very, very clear and very easy language. So why do you think, when did you decide with your father that yes, this story needs to be told? People need to know about it. And about your grandfather, of course, they need to know.
I've been aware of this history for a very long time. I've been wanting this story to be told for a really long time.
Hmm.
But my father was very hesitant. There was only one particular part that he was hesitant about, and that is the part that we begin the book with. The Punjab chapters.
Yeah.
And because, the family was targeted and the family had, 10 years of being under threat, both my father and my mother were hesitant to get into this story, and they didn't want to speak about it. And they said, we just don't want any more spotlight on us. We are ho gaya. So, and my dad, I kept pestering them. My dad said, look, that's journalism, right? My dad said, I'm a journalist. I'm going to write this. If I have to write the story, I'm going to write the whole truth. I'm not somebody मैं आधा पीछा नहीं लिख सकता. मुझे वो लिखना है तो मुझे पूरा लिखना पड़ेगा. So that पूरा लिखने के लिए I had to persuade him. It took me a while to persuade him. And when he was on board, then this is it. The book that looks through terrorism in Punjab. It looks through the emergency again when the newspaper was impacted. It, of course, looks at the British Raj and independence. And it ends with, that these were the kind of journalists that brought up journalism in the country to where how broken journalism is today in our nation.
Absolutely right. While on the subject of the Punjab terrorism, I know you mentioned somewhere that that was the part, that's the reason why you took so long, because you were deciding about writing, whether coming out, and I'm sure it was a bad chapter too. Please walk us through as to what happened in 1984 when this unfortunate incident happened in your father's office about this parcel bomb going off, and what was the state of the family then? Because when I was going through it, I was really having goosebumps. It was a real hit and miss kind of a situation. So, what was it like?
It was 1983. 84 were the riots. So
Right,
just
83, yeah.
some months before the riots. So people actually think that the Punjab story begins from when Operation Blue Star happened, and when the army stormed the very sacred Golden Temple, and that then and then the next chapter was, of course, the most horrific. Delhi riots, the anti-Sikh riots. But there was a story that was already happening, which is why we've written this story. We've tried to say that a puri narrative mein na, there's been a little bit of a story that's been missing, and that's the beginning. By the time you reached Operation Blue Star, and yes, we should question why it happened and why the army was in a position that it had to storm the very, very sacred Harmandir Sahib. But a lot had already happened before that, which nobody speaks about. Where terror militancy had taken root in the state, where people were being taken out of buses, people were being taken out, from their rickshaw, they were being shot while they were going to the market, they were being taken out of trains and asked and lined up on the basis of their faith and then shot dead in, literally in cold blood. So all those things had already been happening. The state, there was already a turmoil in the state. And after partition, a lot of newspapers from Punjab has always been a very big, so to speak, like it's a state of newspapers in itself before independence as well. So after when partition happened, a lot of these newspapers that were basically in Lahore, moved to the other side of Punjab and Jalandhar. So Jalandhar had, which is where our newspaper moved as well, had about 10 to 12 newspapers. Hindi, Punjabi. We were an Urdu newspaper, but later on, by the time the 1983 happened, we also had a Hindi newspaper, and we had the Tribune coming out of Chandigarh. And so basically, it was the terrorists and the militants who didn't like the fact that we had a Hindi newspaper, and that we were speaking up against. There were two newspapers, Punjab Kesari and Veer Pratap, and that Veer Pratap and Punjab Kesari were speaking against them. So Punjab Kesari was also targeted. Two of their editors were killed. But the first target happened to be Veer Pratap before everything kind of unfolded. It was in 1983, and my father, terrorism had already started. And my father was sitting in his office. There was a parcel that came from my grandfather. It said Sri Virendra on top. And my father, who was very busy, he was finishing something, tried to open it very quickly, but it was nailed in such a way that he couldn't. And so then he called a peon and he said, Isko jaldi se khol do. My father thought that it's just because promotional, some advertisements or something come to newspaper offices all the time. And the guy tried to open it and he couldn't. It was again nailed so much and it was disturbing my father. He was writing something, so he said just take it to the other room and just bring it back. And I think within seconds there was a big blast and two people died there and then, and one was injured. And yeah, that was how it all began. And for the next, until the beginning of 90s, it was the same story. There were threats, there were, a hit list in which the family's name was prominently there. My grandfather was chased by terrorists a few times. We found terrorists at home trying to get into this despite having security at home for a decade. We had huge number. We had all kinds of we had the top security the country could offer, and from the Indo-Tibetan Border Police to the BSF to everything to the Assam Rifles, I believe as well. My father told me, and yeah, so it was not a normal household.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
And that's what we've tried to just plug in that gap to say that there is this one story in Punjab that nobody speaks about. This is that story. And, after that, of course, we've got Operation Blue Star, and then, things move on. So there's just this fact that ठीक नहीं हुआ, and and we're not taking away from anybody's story. We're not taking away from the fact that Operation Blue Star happened. We're not taking away from the fact that those riots happened in Delhi and they should not have. And but we are just saying that there's one more story and you just need to see that story as well.
absolutely. How difficult it would have been for the women of the house as well. I'm sure, and it was very troubling for me to be going through those pages and kind of being in that. But coming back to freedom struggle, why do you think British really hated Pratap so much? I mean, the newspaper, as soon as it is launched, I think within a few days, it's closed off for a year. It is launched during, I think, the Jallianwala Bagh.
Right? Just before, 12 days before.
Yeah, and why do you think it all happened? And then it carries on for 99 years. And then coming back, I think in 2017, finally, you closed it off. So tell me more. I mean, why do you think they really hated the guts of Pratap?
I think it was my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather, Maharshi Krishan, started the newspaper. He was extremely, if we talk about being fearless, it was him. We've written that, with a pickaxe. He was so cutting in his editorials. And he was extremely well known in Lahore. And so when the newspaper, he took out this newspaper, he used to write, but when he took out the newspaper, it was sold out there and then. And it was very anti the imperialists, and it was very daring, and it kind of extolled everyone towards nationalism. And so just 12 days later, they suspended the newspaper, and they didn't even allow it to come out on the day of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre because they knew what would happen if that newspaper was printed. And so for 1 year, they kept it suspended. And 1 year later, when the newspaper came out, it was sold out there and then on the same day again. And that was the story. And, that's the story that continued to kind of exemplify the newspaper throughout. A newspaper where the editors never kind of bowed down ever. Later, my grandfather became the editor in the 1940s. And he said even during the emergency of Indira Gandhi, when his editorials were suspended,
Hmm.
and he said, and they were not suspended, but they had to be checked by the censors. And he said, "Look, my family and I, we've never caved in to the British. Who are we? Why would we cave in independent India?" So he stopped writing his editorials, and even during the terrorism time, he wrote it every single day. Despite the threat, despite the hit list, and despite everything. And my dad, he wrote editorials for 50 years every single morning. So, it's remarkable that this. I mean, I can detach myself from this story and say, okay, and look at it simply as a writer or simply as a journalist, and say that, and not connect myself to the family and say, there are people like this, and where have those people gone? And why have we lost so much? I get it. Progress is important, but and today there's this whole endeavor to break down history and to dismiss history, but you could not have reached the present without the past. So you can keep dismissing a little bit of that history because, or trying to appropriate certain leaders or certain men from that history who have absolutely nothing to do with the freedom struggle, because you have no other hero or icon, of your own. You are not involved in the freedom struggle. You have no icons. You have nobody to say. So you can keep denigrating Nehru or even Mahatma Gandhi, and yet you need Mahatma Gandhi because the world still admires him. So on the 2nd of October, you have to go and bow down to him. But the rest of the year, you can allow everybody else to say anything about him. So it's a very sad reflection of where we've reached today, because one does not have to be at the expense of the other. You can be in your present. Is it because we are very complex people, or is it that we were always, I think more and more today when I see the kind of aggression that has come into our society, I keep wondering, maybe we were always this aggressive people, and we had a McCorton जिसको बोलते थे, we had a mask on us very long, and that mask has finally dropped, and this is it, this is what the people are. So it's very unfortunate that those people who fought for our independence are today being denigrated by people who sit on their sofas, learn information on WhatsApp and social media, and are being radicalized in their homes, have nobody to look up to, and so they look down at.
You're so right. And I also remember the blank editorials that your father, I
Yeah.
think, showed up in the newspaper during the emergency. So those were the days of actually real journalism, where people were really passionate about what they were
Yeah.
writing and what they were conveying. So that is the difference which has come in. Now it's more of paid, news, most of it, not always, not bad, but
Paid news, it's misinformation, and it is bowing down to the government.
absolutely, absolutely. And coming to the present generation, so what do you think a book like Pratap should mean for the new generation, and why is this story very, very important for the younger generation who've not been part of the narrative, who don't know behind the scenes, who don't know, the way you've written the story. I mean, they need to know what really happened. So do you think it will really, the book like this, conversations around
No,
it, will spark?
of course. Of course, I think for sure. I'm just trying to see if I can just read a little bit from uh, where I talk about, how history gets tinkered. Not just me, my dad and I both. You know, uh, that's I'm sorry if you'll give me a second. Just
Sure, sure,
quickly
don't
see if I
worry.
can just dig out those lines. Mm, Yeah, okay. The book here, because the book connects the unsaid heroic acts with revolutionary defiance and at times plain impudence, there is a similarity between books and history. Both don't age, although tinkering with them is not unusual. By wiping a past of its integral persona, communities and recollection of unimaginable valor or inconceivable loss are allowed to disappear. If not, they are sanitized to reflect collective behavior and emotion. Precisely because of this. And in a time and age where we find ourselves, where history is being absolutely tinkered, textbooks and CBSE books are being changed, I think it's very important to read history from those people who actually lived through it. Because, there's this is not a second-hand account. This is a lived account. There is nothing, you can't say history, इसमें आप कोई बोल ही नहीं सकता हमें कि ये गलत है, ये फेक है, ये
बिल्कुल
सही है,
बिल्कुल।
ये हमारी कहानी है. So I think that I hope more and more people still, and also time is running out on that generation, isn't it, Neeta? People are now, that generation, we are almost losing that generation of people who kind of were, who were refugees, who left their homes to restart. It's very easy to sit in crib and, say, go to Pakistan. But those people who actually came from Pakistan, who left everything that they had earned to start their lives again, that is valor, that is bravery, that is courage. Not sitting on your sofas and, just behind some anonymous handles where you don't even have the guts to put in your face and abusing people who speak anything that is sane, who speak anything about independence, who speak anything about Nehru, who speak anything about Bhagat Singh. So it's a very sad place that we are in. But also, I want to say that if people like history, people, a lot of reviewers have called this book a historical thriller. And so I hope that, because of that, if you like it, read it. There's lots and lots about Bhagat Singh because, he and my grandfather were very, very closely acquainted, as you said, till the last day. So what happened in jail on the day Bhagat Singh was hanged is again a first-hand account, and only account that my grandfather shared because he was in the same jail. How they got to know that he was being hanged, how the hanging was preponed, how Bhagat Singh escaped Lahore, but my grandfather was arrested for the Saunders case. We all read about these things in the history books, right? The Simon Commission, the Saunders case. It was while protesting for the Simon Commission that my grandfather was first introduced to Bhagat Singh. Both of them were walking anonymously in that march. So, if you like history, there are a lot of unsung heroes there who were behind the headlines and contributed equally to the freedom struggle. So our attempt has also been to tell people that, my grandfather deserves a little bit of your time.
Absolutely. And such unknown facts. I mean, I didn't know about this part of the story at all. So this made it very, very interesting. Coming back to defiance in journalism, do you think journalism today has the moral courage that maybe some of the newspapers can have? Do you think they can have the moral courage that papers like Pratap embodied? Papers like, do you think we still have hope?
You see, there are a few newspapers, and thankfully, thank God for them,
Hmm.
Uh, it can get a bit dicey sometimes. Indian Express is one of those. It can go a bit here and there. But, there's the Tribune that's still coming from Chandigarh. There is the Hindu that comes from Chennai. There is Telegraph that comes from Kolkata. I think if you just kind of glance through them, then there is still hope. And of course, there's digital media. I think if News Laundry is doing a remarkable job, and there are others like The Wire and all that give you the kind of news that television news is no longer giving you. And so I think it's very important for us to understand, to read everything, because I do not buy this argument कि अगर हम ये television पे news ना देखें तो देखें क्या? मत देखो. Why is it okay for you to be brainwashed knowing that you're watching misinformation and fake news? And say, just because I don't have an alternative, I'll watch misinformation. No, don't waste your time. Go online. There's a digital world. It's opened up. So many YouTubers trying to do a good job. You find your space. Take the time out. I've never bought this argument. If not him, then who should we vote for? If not this, then what should we watch? I think that's a very lazy response.
I totally agree, and I totally am in tune with what you're saying, definitely. But tell me one thing. I mean, there's so much of legacies there in your family, and so many things. Already, you're also doing. Your father is still writing. Would you like to revive Pratap one day?
We have had
I've been wanting to ask you
so
that.
many people ask us that
Okay.
question, Neeta.
Yeah.
And
I wish you do that.
And it's a lot of hard work, but it's there in the back of my mind. Journalism kya hai, kahan se kahan aa gaya. I keep asking my father, "Do you want to?" He's like, "Oh, I'm taking a time out now." But never say never.
So we definitely will look forward to it
I
because,
don't know, but I mean, yeah, I
this
would like
time and
to.
age,
I
you would
it,
like somebody to be coming out with this kind of, you know,
I have to, because what I'm not in, exactly what I have also inherited from my family. None of us are business people, and neither am I. So there's no, the whole money part of things. If you ask me, take out a website, work on it, there, I'll take it out. But there is a commercial aspect to things. You have to pay salaries. The moment those things happen, I have a small team. I just work with them, and I move on. But I would love to.
yeah,
I
the
would love
kind of
to.
legacy to revive. I think, I'm sure. What did you think when it closed down in 2017 when your
Yeah,
father
I was
was?
very sad. I
Hmm.
was very sad. Yeah, so was my father. So were his employees.
Because,
Everybody.
frankly, I'll admit, before reading the newspaper, the book, I didn't know about Pratap. I mean, I have to tell you that.
No, that is exactly why we wrote it, Anita.
Hmm.
Because my father's whole thing was like, "Kaun padega hamari kahani?" I said, we have to keep faith. We have a story to tell, and so give it a shot. जितने पढ़ेंगे वो ठीक है. You know.
क्योंकि और फिर during the course of the book you find that it closed down, and when I was reading about the
Yeah.
book on the net also, that it closed down in 2017, and I said it was so fairly recently. We're just talking about
Yes.
8 years back, just before the COVID.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
it
Yes.
sounds in our generation, so I look forward to it definitely, that you think something in that direction. We need journalism like that very much now than ever. So, what is
For
the
sure.
one takeaway for readers, do you think, in the book, which you really thought? I know awareness definitely, the right history definitely, about Virendra, yes. What else? What one takeaway from your side for the readers of this book?
It is always a reminder to speak truth to power, no matter what. If you're a journalist, do journalism the right way. And how is journalism done the right way? To speak truth to power, not to bow down, not to literally levitate on the ground. I think also in a society, uh, for me, it's why has it become so difficult to speak the truth? Even as a society, we don't speak the truth, we don't speak up. Speak up, every voice counts, you know. And it's bravery, it's nationalism, and to understand what the true meaning of patriotism is. It's not this ghisa muscular nationalism that we keep hearing about today. Oh, you put a DP of the tricolor on your social media and then you abuse everybody else. This extremism, this majoritarianism is not nationalism, I'm sorry to say. You want to know what real meaning of nationalism is, then pick up the book. You want to know what it is to speak truth to power, pick up the book. Do you want to know what courage is? Speak up the book. And more importantly, do you want to know what journalism should be, then pick up the book.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was listening to one of your podcasts where you mentioned that maybe you talk about getting, the Hindi version of the book out. So, what are the plans? Are you still thinking about it?
Yeah,
I think that
there
should
are
reach more and
plans.
more readers.
It is. Writing a book is easier, Neeta. Then doing all this work is very hard in the background. So, जिसको बोलते हैं ना पापड़ बहुत बेलने पड़ते हैं बाकी चीजों के लिए.
But you are an
So
all-rounder. You're doing so much already. So I'm sure this is, you
yeah,
manage
I don't know.
everything
I
so
don't know.
well.
All rounders are like jack of. My grandfather used to always say jack of all trades, master of none. So that's where I am, I think. But it has to come. We keep people keep sending us. I keep asking. It has to be decided between the publishers.
Yeah.
So I think they are also waiting to get a good deal. They've had a couple of offers, but they're also trying to see where they can get a better deal out of this.
Because my point
That's why.
was that it definitely needs to reach a wider audience, and we definitely have a lot of Hindi readers who will like to
Yeah.
read this book. So,
Yeah.
but definitely, it's been such a pleasure talking to
Hopefully,
you. Of course,
hopefully, the
yes,
Hindi version.
yes, and you did mention that maybe your father will translate the book. So, You must. So one last question before we wind up. I think you would have answered. I've just written this question somewhere. If Pratap could speak to us today, what would it urge us to question, to protect, and to never take for granted? And also, what issues will it take fiercely as of now?
As of now, oh, I think we always laugh, my dad and I, because my dad is always like, oh, अगर अभी तक बंद नहीं हुआ होता, then it अब बंद कर देते, because it would have again spoken up against all that is happening in the society, or would have spoken up against the government, against the wrongs, against everything from unemployment to inflation to everything. That's how what Pratap used to be, right? And so yeah, it may not have survived this dispensation as well. So in a sense, as my father says, maybe it's a good thing it was closed in time. But I'd really, there are a few, the Gulzar Saab, who's given us the quote for the book, because his father used to read Pratap. We have had so many people who've gotten in touch saying that their father. I've had editors who said that they would be given like one rupee or 50 paise to go down and get the newspaper when they were kids, and so that's the kind of beauty of this book, that we've had the recollection of it has been immense. And you say that you've got a lot of Hindi audience as well, so maybe I'm just going to read a couple of lines in from one of our couplets from the beginning, to say why we wrote the book, and to kind of, I think that would pretty much say it all. ना सर छिपाकर जिए हम, ना सर झुकाकर जिए, सितमगर की नजरों से नजरें मिलाकर जिए, अब अगर एक रात कम जिए तो कम ही सही, ये बहुत है कि मशालें जलाकर जिए. And I think that has been the mantra of this family through and through, and I think that is something I continue to inherit, and I hope that the next generations in our family also understand. I mean, there's so many challenges, but if you're true to yourself, you will always be true to others.
How well said, and thank you for quoting. I also read it, and it was wonderful and very aptly put in the book. But thank you, Jyotsna, for such a wonderful conversation. I mean,
thank you so much. Thank you, Neeta, for taking the time out. And just to your viewers, I'd like to say that this book it's again not going to come out with me. Oh yeah, it is a little bit. It is available on Amazon. I think it is available. No, it's not like I think. I know it's available in bookstores as well. If you are in any city and it's not available in your city in a bookstore, please let me know. Otherwise, do get it off Amazon or Flipkart. And if you read it, please share a review. That means the world to writers, honestly. And thank you for taking the time out to listen to my story.
Thank you. And it's very easily and very, Amazon delivers it very fast. I ordered it second time over, so it's very fast. So I think Amazon is the right place to order, and very quick there. So thank you so much for your conversation today. And I must tell all the viewers that today's book, Pratap, a Defiant newspaper, is not just a chronicle of a publication, but it's a powerful reminder of a time when words were acts of courage. And journalism was deeply, deeply entwined with the idea of nation building. So, as I just said, that hope the Hindi version comes out soon for wider reach. So, with this note, we end our conversation, and I request everyone to please subscribe to our channel so that this conversation, very, very valuable, important conversation, reaches to as many people as possible. Thank you, Jyotsna. Thank you for taking our time.
Thank you, Neeta.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hope to see you soon. Thank you.